Good evening and peace be upon you all. Welcome to the Roswell City Council debate hosted by Roswell Community Masjid. My name is Shafina Kabani. I'm the Executive Director of Georgia Muslim Voter Project, and I'll be moderating today's debate. I'm also joined by Shaheen, who will be today's timekeeper. It's great to have you all with us today. Whether you're tuning in virtually or you're here with us in person, we thank you for joining us today and being actively engaged in our civic processes. Your dedication to showing up is what makes our community so special and resilient. We'd also like to thank our candidates for accepting today's debate invitation. This year is RCM's fourth year hosting a municipal election debate. Our community is committed to cultivating a vibrant civic life, and this debate is a crucial part of that. We hope it provides the community with the meaningful information it needs to make informed decisions in the upcoming Roswell City Council election on November 2nd. A few important election reminders from Georgia Muslim Voter Project before we get started. The last day to register to vote, if you're not already, is October 4th. You can visit gamvp.org/register if you do need to register. Absentee ballots will start being mailed out as early as October 11th. If you haven't applied for your absentee ballot, you should do so now. In-person early voting will run from October 12th through October 29th. To look up your ballot, read candidate profiles, check your voter status, find your polling place, and so much more, visit gamvp.org/vote or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Our handle is @GAMVP. Now, let's move on to the debate. Today's debate will consist of 6 questions. Candidates will answer in alphabetical order. The first candidate for each question has a minute to respond, and the following candidates get 30 seconds to answer the same question. The timekeeper will inform when you have 15 seconds remaining, and again when your time is over. If absolutely needed, rebuttals should be kept at 15 seconds maximum. We ask that candidates please respect the time limits, and most importantly, please respect each other. Each candidate will have 1 minute for an introduction and 1 minute for closing remarks. We will start with seat 4, and I invite Council Member Marie Wilsey to begin our introductions.
Thank you, everyone, for being here, and thank you to the Roswell Masjid for your hospitality for hosting this debate tonight. Over the past 4 years, it's been an honor to serve the people of Roswell as a city council member. In my role, I've had the privilege to talk to a lot of residents and to business owners and get to know you and find out what really matters most to our city. What I found is that we all want to maintain safe, secure neighborhoods, enhance our great quality of life, improve traffic, and see businesses and the city we love thrive. As an almost 30-year resident of Roswell, I care about our city and its future. My husband, Glenn, and I came here for many of the same reasons that you did. We've raised our son Parker here, and it's the only place he'll ever call home. And our son Stephen returned here to start a small business. We've made a lot of progress over the last 4 years, and with my experience and with my passion for our city, I'm looking forward to continue working for you and for Roswell.
Thank you. Mr. Vanstrom.
Hello, thank you very much for having us. I'm excited to be running for Post 4 Roswell City Council. I'm Peter Vanstrom. I'm running because I think we can do better. I think that this is going to be a very historic election for Roswell. I think we're going to be at a crossroads, and the voters are going to have 2 very distinct choices to make. One of those choices is going to be to continue with the status quo. The status quo, keep doing things the way we've been doing them, getting the same results. That would be a vote for my opponent. A vote for me will be for a bold new vision, a vision where we put residents first. There will be no more high-density apartments as an easy answer to redevelopment. We'll address and try to take care of the stalled-out projects that are sitting behind in Roswell, like Oxbow, Sun Valley, and the Parkside development. We'll create a vision for the residents that will bring about true business development and true business recruitment. I can't wait to lay out my plan the rest of today talking about that very issue. And we also need to clean up our parks. We need to increase and enhance the beauty of our gateways. The pride that we should have in our city, it is not reflected in the entryways, and we need to take better care to welcome the people to our great town.
Thank you. We'll start with question number 1. Councilmember Wilsey. Roswell has many semi-vacant shopping centers and empty spaces. How would you resolve this issue?
First of all, I think it's no secret that our region is growing, and many of us are frustrated that while we're seeing some really positive things happen in the cities around us, we do have some empty shopping centers and some areas that seem to be stagnant. The question is, how do we do what's right for Roswell and learn from the cities that are around us? We talk about this a lot, and I really don't think we're that far apart. How I would approach solving the problem is completely redoing our Unified Development Code and making sure that it reflects the community vision and makes it easier and expresses what residents want and makes it easier for investors and for people who might partner with the city to understand and to continuously involve the community in its implementation. My second focus would be to direct redevelopment where it belongs and focus on our commercial corridors. We need to prioritize renovating properties and repurposing them and refreshing them wherever possible. I believe that if we can do this together, the result will be a stronger tax base, better experiences for Roswell, and a thriving Roswell.
Thank you. Mr.
Repeat the
Vanstrom?
question, please. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. Roswell has many semi-vacant shopping centers and empty spaces. How would you resolve this issue?
Well, the first thing that I'd like to see Roswell do is restructure City Hall. We lack the business development, business recruitment arm that we need to have. We have, my opponent has kicked the can and initially voted against an economic development director. That economic director is going to be vital, and when I'm elected, I will put him in a position, or her in a position of power, so that they can help to develop our cities. And we'll also bring in a city planner so that we can get down to street level design for all of these areas that need to be redeveloped.
Thank you. Mr. Vanstrom, we'll start with you for the second question. Currently, Roswell offers no compacting services to its residents. How would you support a municipal composting program?
A municipal composting. I'm going to have to tell you, you got me on that one. I absolutely did not expect a question on composting. I didn't know we didn't have composting. I'm fortunate I have a lot of land behind me, so I don't have to worry about such things. I cannot answer the question on composting because I have absolutely no knowledge about composting. I'll have to look that up and study that some more.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, thank you. And, I'm not surprised to hear a lot of hot air from my opponent about some other topics, but really not focusing on and understanding exactly all the areas that the city is involved in. Our Environmental Public Works Department is constantly looking for ways to innovate and serve the community as far as recycling goes. Composting is something that we discussed recently. Again, we're always innovating new ways and looking for ideas that come from residents and from business owners, and it's certainly something that we can address and consider developing a program for.
Thank you. Question number 3. How do you see faith-based organizations playing a role in the city of Roswell? And Councilmember Wilsey, we'll start with you.
I think one of the things that makes Roswell such a great city is how diverse we are and the different cultures that are here. We're a welcoming city, and I see that every day in our community. Just this past weekend, I Keep Roswell's Beautiful Rivers Alive event. It was just really touching to look out into the audience and see so many different faces from many different cultures and races and in church groups that had organized. I believe that there is a place for all of these groups, and we need to continue encouraging them and recognizing the efforts of our volunteers. The city does offer a lot of programs, and I think just by welcoming each other and knowing that we are all working together for the community that we love and that we call home, that's one way to bring us closer together, and to build those connections and help us to better understand each other and our cultures. Again, I think we all are working together for our community, and as long as we realize that, we'll continue to make this such a wonderful place to live.
Thank you. Mr. Vanstrom?
Yeah, I find one of the greatest attributes of Roswell is the inclusivity of the city itself, with all different races and all different faiths. One of the reasons I moved here with my wife 30 years ago from Cobb County was because we wanted to live in a city and raise our children in the environment of a very open and a very welcoming community of all races and all religions. And that is indeed what Roswell offers. I live along the river, and I enjoy walking along the boardwalk hearing 7 to 10 different languages every day of a mix of wonderful people all joined together here in Roswell.
Thank you. Question number 4, and Council Member will, Mr. Vanstrom, we'll start with you. Would you support a ban on single-use plastic for official city business and in city buildings, similar to what surrounding municipalities have done, including Fulton County? Why or why not?
I think that we should be following the lead of our neighbors who are having success in their programs. And so, yes, I would follow the lead of Fulton County in this situation. I think their program is working very well, and it's something that we could implement here very easily.
Yes, I think it is certainly something that we would consider and talk about. I know that there are a lot of green practices that are being adopted and practiced at City Hall right now. So, yes, I think that's something that would be adopted and would be certainly something that we could educate folks. And then from City Hall, from the leadership shown in City Hall, I think that's something that our residents might also consider.
Thank you. Question number 5, and we'll start with you, Councilmember Wilsey. What do you think is the role or responsibility of the city of Roswell when it comes to the hundreds of undocumented people living within its city limits?
You know, again, I think that's not something that the city of Roswell government is charged with enforcing. Again, we are there within our folks are within our community, and we have programs that, help take care of those in need. Again, I think as far as providing public safety and that sort of thing. So I think that's something that I would definitely want to collaborate with my other council members and policymakers, and together kind of come to some resolution.
Mr. Vanstrom.
Well, as you know, Roswell has a big heart, and we have a lot of volunteer organizations who do reach out to people that are in need, and the undocumented people who are coming into this country are certainly in need of assistance, and there are organizations that are reaching out to those people locally. I do believe that is more of a federal and a state level issue, that we can help house these folks and help get them comfortable and fed and taken care of, and then processed through the right channels.
Thank you. Next, we'll start with you, Mr. Vanstrom. Focusing on your own strengths, what makes you a better candidate for Roswell than your opponent?
Well, thank you for the question. I think the knowledge of compost is not the knowledge that is the most important knowledge for being on city council. I think what's important is creative initiative. I think what's important is a drive to succeed for the city. I think my opponent has shown a propensity towards apartment development, again and again, a pattern of apartments instead of looking at maybe some more difficult decisions that might help impact the tax burden of the citizens a lot more. Business, true business development, bringing in the personnel at City Hall we need to do those types of things. We have a city that has a feeling that it may be a little stalled out, and I want to be the leader that brings it forward. I want to be the leader that brings back the pride in this city. We have apartments that have been built, and high-density apartments that have been built at Old Scott Road, at Old Alabama, at the old Target location called East Village, and the newest and greatest apartment going in is the highest density in Roswell history that my opponent voted for, and I don't think that's who we want on City Council.
Thank you.
First of all, I would have wished that my opponent would have done a little bit more research into which of those, if any of those apartments were actually approved while I was on city council and which ones have actually been built. You know, we have put a lot of conditions on those projects that possibly have prevented them, that we'll make sure that they're as good as they possibly can be. And City Council doesn't approve density. I think my best qualities are being able to listen, to learn, to be courageous and make difficult decisions when needed, and to connect people together to solve their problems and build relationships.
Thank you. We will now move on to closing remarks. Councilmember Wilsey, you have 1 minute.
Okay. Over the past 4 years, we've made a lot of progress since I've been on City Council. During a time of uncertainty, we pivoted and continued city services without a hitch. We tightened our budgets, and we just passed the lowest millage rate in this last 30 years. We also, in spite of all those setbacks, we partnered with GDOT to redesign the 400 and Holcomb Bridge intersection, which will be a transformational project that will improve east-west connectivity. We have also passed the Historic District Master Plan that will protect and preserve the historic district. We passed a strategic plan that will give guidance to the city's plans going forward, and a bike pedestrian master plan, and a host of other things. With the experience that I have, I think I'm well equipped to move forward and continue to serve the people of Roswell and to work for Roswell and for you.
Thank you. Mr. Vanstrom.
Well, thank you. I would like to make one comment about the millage rates. I think it's great during an election that we pick certain categories to talk about. The millage rate is not the true tax reduction. The true tax reduction would be when we increase the business in the business corridors where it belongs, and we bring in businesses that offset the taxes that are very, very strongly shouldered by the residents at 70% currently. A true tax cut will come when I'm in council and we build up our business corridors with smart growth that fits Roswell and works for the residents as destination points and as businesses that contribute to our economy. My history it goes deep to dental school. When I was a president of the dental school, because the school was closing, I wanted to be a leader. In Northlake, I was a leader at Northlake the Northlake Revitalization Commission, where we revitalized the entire area around Northlake and ended up bringing in 600 new jobs recently. I'm excited to be bringing that experience to revitalization of our areas on Highway 9 and Holcomb Bridge that so badly need, at the least, streetscapes, at the very least, streetscapes and improvements on traffic flow. And that's where I want to get starting. On Planning Commission, I learned a very lot about this city, and what I learned is that we need to bring the Roswell residents' vision first, and we need to promote the visions for our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. And now we are going to shift over to the debate for seat 5. Following the same rules that we followed previously. If you are answering the question first, you will have 1 minute. The other members will have 30 seconds to respond. And if you do need to respond with a rebuttal, you'll have 15 additional seconds. We'll start with 1 minute of introductions each and then close with 1 minute of closing remarks. We will start introductions with Mr. Michael Del Chero.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I would like to thank RCM and the volunteers for being here this evening. My name is Michael Del Chero, and I'm a graduate here of Roswell High School from 30 years ago. I live in Habersham Downs with my wife here and our 3 sons. We also started a small Roswell-based business called Del Chero Group, where we focus on talent acquisition and real estate services. I'm currently a global talent acquisition partner with Microsoft and a member of the Georgia Association of Realtors. Here locally, volunteerism is very significant for me. I'm very well plugged in to viewing city council meetings. I was co-president to the Roswell High School Band Boosters Association, member of Roswell Next, and volunteer for the Roswell Day of Hope. I got my bachelor's degree from Georgia State University. I'm here to be a positive voice for Roswell. Roswell is great, and I'm here to make it greater. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Yolanda Freeman.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Yolanda Freeman. I'm a single mother that lives in Roswell. I have 3 children, 2 adult children, and I have 1 junior at Centennial High School. I wanted to be on city council because I want to make a difference. I want to see unity and diversity in our community. I'm a school lunch lady. I'm in the schools every day. I'm a substitute, a floater. So I'm at every different school daily in Roswell serving our youth food. You wouldn't believe the stories I hear from our youth, the parents that I talk to. People are ready for change. We need a lot of things that need to be done in our community to strengthen it because they love their community and they want to make a difference. If we can start with our youth, I have a vision for having youth be a part. I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay. I have a vision for our youth to start coming to city council meetings, learn about it. Let's have mock city council, mock things. If you want to be a judge, have a mock judge for you. If they want to be a mayor, let them spend a day. Let's have a hangout day with the mayor. Let's do something to empower our youth to keep them out of trouble. And I'm just passionate about serving and volunteering for Roswell.
Thank you. And then we have William Morthland.
Good evening. I'm William Morthland. I'm running for City Council Post 5. I decided to run for the City Council because I want to improve Roswell's future. I'm a proud parent of 2 wonderful children who are the centers of my universe. They're basically into everything Roswell has to offer. This was one of the things that really stood out to my wife and me when we were comparing different places to call home. This is something special about Roswell, from its warm, welcoming people to its natural assets to its historic charm that reminds me of my birthplace of Selma, Alabama. However, with these characteristics comes great responsibility. The responsibility of moving our town forward as one cohesive unit, not divided due to contentious local government. We as adults sitting in this room tonight must set the example of good governance for a common goal to enable our future generations' future prosperity.
Thank you. Our questions today for all seats come from members of the Roswell community themselves. For our first question, I'll start with Mr. Delchero. Roswell is a beautiful place to live, but living here is becoming more expensive. Pricing, availability, property taxes, and rising city, county, state operating costs can make buying a home difficult, especially for young adults, working poor, and elder residents. What are your ideas on addressing our affordable housing issues?
Good question. Thank you very much. So one of my focus areas that you will see online at my website, michaeldforroswell.com, is to keep growth sensible here for us in Roswell. I want to preserve Roswell's small town feel by supporting development that fits a unique local character. I can't help it being a recruiter that we have to recruit businesses as well to be good contributors and good neighbors to our community. I continue support for initiatives as well for the newly minted Historic District Master Plan that will continue to revitalize and renew our downtown. And I'll seek out and implement proposals as well when it comes to repurposing our abandoned shopping centers and to get rid of blight. So that's just a start of my plan for growth.
Thank you. Yolanda?
Yes, my plan of growth for the city would be for Roswell to have more higher paying jobs and probably pair up internship jobs with young people moving to the city, just graduating from college, with the companies. It also would be nice if we would have some financial classes to work with our credit, work with, just mentoring you on buying a home and all the responsibilities.
Mr. Martland?
Future growth for Roswell is an extremely important topic because if you're not growing in the right way, you're regressing. I'm from a very depressed area in Alabama, which is one of the reasons I've got involved in the future planning of Roswell. I don't want to leave behind a Roswell that is not as inclusive and prosperous as the Roswell we know today. Positive organic growth does not happen by accident. It takes an intentional effort on the part of the city decision makers, like the city council, to ensure this happens.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll start with Ms. Freeman. Future projections show tremendous growth in electric vehicles, upwards to 18.1 million by 2030, which will aid clean air initiatives. Do you support installing more EV fast charging around Roswell, and have you given thought to where these would be located?
Yes, I think I would support that because that's the way of the future. We would have to install more of the charging machines. And I just think that we can start our youth in that direction as well, training them for careers in that avenue so that they can jump aboard, be a part of city council and the action in Roswell to put us on the list. Probably let us have one of those battery companies here.
Thank you. Mr. Delchero?
Thank you. So when it comes to our environment and being like ahead of the curve, it's always good to look around you to other municipalities. They're incubators. We should be able to go ahead and reach out and be humble to look for ideas. At the same time, one of my other focus areas here of my platform is to keep Roswell beautiful. It's our community. We have a gem, the Chattahoochee River. We need to take care of our parks and our rivers, okay? And one of my big focus areas to ensure we continue support of our Parks and Recreation Department, as well as moving forward with our River Parks Master Plan as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martland?
Repeat the question for me.
Yes. Future projections show tremendous growth in electric vehicles, upwards to 18.1 million by 2030, which will aid Clean Air Act initiatives. Do you support installing more EV fast charging around Roswell, and have you given thought to where these would be located?
Certainly. The recharging batteries are the wave of the future. It's pretty understandable that this is where the automobiles like a Tesla are coming from and coming to our community. The stations can certainly be provided by the city and all the parks and recs, just like we've had before. But one thing that I'd like to look at is doing a private partnership with maybe some gas stations, putting the charging stations in their parking lot. That would be a very good economic driver for a gas station. So that would be a nice way of doing it.
Thank you. And Mr. Morthland, we'll start with you for this next question. What do you plan to do to promote social and racial justice in our community?
Inclusivity. I live inclusively on a daily basis. My wife is a first-generation American from parents that earned their United States citizenship through service. My father-in-law served for many years in the bowels of the United States Naval Destroyer, working his way up to managing the flight deck. My mother-in-law earned her citizenship through a 25-year career of nursing service to local hospitals in Florida. My brother-in-law is preparing for retirement after 20 years of naval service, most recently stationed in the Pentagon. My children are a wonderful mix of Scotch-Irish heritage, complementing with my wife's Filipino roots. I understand how to be inclusive and diverse through my daily interactions. I will apply these principles to the city's needs as we strive to be an inclusive society and local government.
Thank you. Mr. Del Chero.
Thank you. This is one of my favorite topics, and thank you, Will, for sharing. I'm a first-generation American, born in the US. My dad came here from Italy with a trunk this big. He left everything behind in 1955 to start the American dream. Trying to go ahead and marginalize others, there's no place for it. I went to Georgia State University. It's one of the top 5% of the universities in the US for ethnic and racial diversity. And if I get elected as Post 5 council member, I will be committed to ensure that we include everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you could please just speak up a little bit louder so
Okay.
that our audience at home can hear you
Sure.
when you're responding. Thank you.
Please repeat the
and-
question.
Yes. What would you do to promote social and racial justice in our community?
In our community, I would see if I could talk to the police department here and maybe the fire department. And I would love to, I have a vision of empowering the youth just by having a Bridge the Gap program. Let the high school, the Roswell High School, Centennial High School, let them have basketball game and play sports with police officers. Because if the kids are getting in trouble all the time, or if they're doing things that are negative, if you've had one positive interaction with the police officer, if the police officer has seen you in the community, if he played basketball with you, you guys joked and played around, he might can tell you, don't get in that car and do what I hear you saying you're gonna do. Just those little things that can make a difference. So I want our youth, I want them to pair up with doctors, if you wanna be a nurse, be with a nurse that day. Let a nurse spend time in Roswell with kids to empower them. And I just believe in having community organizations uniting people. Just having everybody know that we can all live here in peace. I moved here for opportunity. I lived in Saginaw, Michigan. We had problems with the Flint water. I moved here for opportunity. I moved here with one luggage. My daughter was going to Georgia State University. I came here to help her with the baby. She couldn't afford daycare in Roswell. I went to every daycare here trying to get a daycare for her baby. So she had to move back to Michigan. She has a great job now, but I would have loved if she could have got a job here in Roswell and I could be with my grandchild. So I just want to have more programs for daycare for people who can't afford this expensive daycare. Have programs. She would have loved to do anything in Roswell to stay here. And I don't want another grandmother to go through what I went through.
Thank you. Our next question for Mr. Del Chero. East Roswell has great access to the Chattahoochee River, and so much can be done to take advantage of that access. How would you replicate this access to the Chattahoochee in other areas of Roswell?
Well, You know, when it comes to our city infrastructure, we need to make sure we look at a strategic, holistic perspective. And on a side note, you know, we are one Roswell. And being here since the 80s, yeah, certainly we have grown. And certainly there's been opportunities for us to figure out how to continue supporting our growing city. And where I believe what we can focus on is that we need to make sure that we can have ourselves to keep our traffic moving. Using our T-SPLOST funds effectively, okay, on projects that will open up our roads and get access to the needed natural assets to our city. And we'll also work with the Georgia Department of Transportation as well too, in terms of looking at ways to improve areas such as our Georgia 400 and Holcomb Bridge corridor.
Thank you.
You got it. Thank you.
Ms. Freeman?
Please repeat the question.
Absolutely. East Roswell has great access to the Chattahoochee River, and so much can be done to take advantage of that access. How would you replicate this access to the Chattahoochee River in other areas?
Basically, I would just get the word out in the community to everybody to ask for ideas, taking surveys, just checking with our community members, seeing what can they do to make a difference to help that situation.
Thank you.
We're going to expand the Parks and Recreation Service to bring more access to the riverfronts. We have the East Roswell, has lots of shoreline, all the places that need access. I would put under the Parks and Recreation Department, partnered with the Department of Natural Resources to bring plenty of access to the people that can't get to it right now. It's going to be a great thing.
Thank you. Just another quick reminder, just try to turn up the volume just a little bit. We want to make sure everybody at home can hear you. Our next question we'll pose to Ms. Freeman. What is the most significant challenge the city of Roswell is facing, and how will you address it?
The most significant problem is, I want to say safety, probably not in the residential, in the neighborhoods, but I live in an apartment, so safety in the apartment areas. I will address it as far as the apartment, the homeowners, you guys, they have homeowner associations and they have a very strong network. But in apartments, we don't have that support. So I would like to have all the apartments in Roswell combined to have like a neighborhood association where each apartment complex could have a group where we would all come together and talk about our safety issues or any issues that we may not want the manager to know. Because you don't want to tell on your neighbor, you don't want your neighbor kicked out, but it might be something you guys could work out together in a group if we came to a common place where we could talk about these issues.
Thank you. Mr. Delchero.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah,
I appreciate
absolutely.
that.
What is the most significant challenge the city of Roswell is facing, and how will you address it?
Thank you so much. I see here closely like a twofold discussion, and 30 seconds may not be enough, so I'll do the best I can. Real quick, the first one is growth. We need to be very intentional about it, as I said before, to preserve our small town charm. As I moved here back in 1986, to embrace that and also be able to take that forward to the future for future development that's unique to our local character. And the second thing, real quick, is also taking a good hard look to keep our traffic moving. As I stated earlier, leveraging our resources from the GDOT, Georgia Department of Transportation, to look at a strategy to help us moving forward and even potentially pull funds to help us get there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morthland.
I would say accountability and transparency on the city council would be a great way of starting. In my experience as a bank examiner and auditor, we were charged with assuring the governance of the institutions were sound. The depositors, the investors, and stakeholders depend on the fact their livelihoods were safe and protected. I'll do the same for the Roswell. We must be protecting our assets through clear and concise, financially responsible decision-making policies.
Thank you. And our last question for the Seat 5 debate, I'll start with you, Mr. Morthland. Focusing on your own strengths, what makes you a better candidate for Roswell than your opponents?
I would say leadership. With every successful team, you have a strong leader setting and living by example. Leadership for Roswell is imperative if we're going to continue to grow and thrive. My skill set is that I listen, weigh the facts, understand the outcomes of all potential scenarios, and make the best decision for the Roswell citizens. I learned these traits through the person I admire the most, which is my father. He instilled within his family something our society could use more, which is character. As he would always reference, the true merit of an individual is not what one does in front of people, but what one does when no one is watching. This is the cornerstone of character which yields great leaders.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, there's a host of things I would love to share. When it comes to traits, it all starts with mindset. You can't train a mindset. You're going to be innately there in terms of being positive to take it forward. And that's one of the things I really feel I bring to bear. But as well, I have other traits. I coached Little League for many years. I can handle 6-year-olds around the ball field. But I also consider myself a coach and investing in others. So in summary, my top 5 strengths, according to the Clifton Strengths Profile personality test, I'm an achiever, I'm strategic, I'm an includer, I bring context, and I'm a relator. Thank you.
Ms. Freeman?
Yes, I am a hands-on person, not social media, I'm hands-on. I love to just dig in. I work behind the scenes. I'm always doing something behind the scenes to help someone. I think I can strengthen and expand on the City Council's Diversity and Inclusion Task Force. That's just one of my goals that I would really love to get with. And I'm just trustworthy, honest. I tell it like it is. I may not know a lot of things in a lot of other areas, but with the right person mentoring me, I think I could do wonderful things for Roswell because I love Roswell.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to closing remarks. Mr. Delchero, you have 1 minute.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you to RCM again for hosting us this evening. Thank you to our moderator and timekeeper. I also like to thank my opponents, Yolanda and Will, for being here tonight. I feel like I'm uniquely qualified for Post 5. I'm going to run a positive campaign. And the 3 things I feel like that make up me as a uniquely qualified candidate is 1, my personal story, having lived here as far back as 1986. Once a Hornet, always a Hornet. 2, my career. I have built high-powered teams across the U.S. and locally of high-performing cultures. That's the signature of my recruiting experience. 3, my volunteerism. I frequently listen to the city council meetings. I've taken a proactive approach to build relationships across City Hall. I volunteer to the Roswell Day of Hope, which, by the way, is this coming Saturday. I'm here to be a positive voice for Roswell. Roswell is a great place, and I'm here to make it greater. To learn more about me, go to michaeldforroswell.com. A sign or donation would be there. If you can do that, I appreciate it. And don't forget to vote as early as October 12th or voting day, November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Freeman, you have 1 minute.
I am your right choice to vote for. And I believe that because I believe in Roswell. If everybody I meet could feel the way I do, when all these new homes you're building here, when they come to Roswell, if we can do what we need to do to make them feel the way I feel about Roswell, we'll be a success. But we all have to work hard together to make this happen. And I know it can be done, and I think I can take the lead on that with working with a great group in Roswell to make a success.
Thank you. And Mr. Morthland?
I've always had a passion for civic duty. I'm running because I want to be the voice for Roswell residents and champion what is important to them in moving Roswell forward. I have financial experience as a state bank examiner and auditor, which is a benefit for the council. My experience will help ensure our city projects are on budget, stay within scope, and are completed on time. After speaking with many residents, I want to be sure the council represents the interest of its people. I'll only support responsible development, limiting high-density projects, which affects our already congested streets. I'll support development that promotes growth for the city without taking away from the charm of Roswell. I will lobby and deliver greater investments in our Parks and Recreation Department, as well as our heroes that work for the emergency response services. I will focus on restoring transparency, civility, and accountability on the council. I'm running because I want to help our community. I have no other hidden agenda. I promise to represent the interest of Roswell's greatest assets, its people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here with us today, and we'll be right back with the Seat 6 debate. We will now conclude with the debate for Seat 6. With us today, we have the incumbent, Councilmember Matt Judy, and candidate Lee Hills. Thank you for being with us today. Again, we're going to follow the same rules. The first person to respond to the question will have 1 minute to respond. The response will get 30 seconds, and if you have a rebuttal, you'll have 15 seconds. We'll do 1 minute introductions and 1 minute closing remarks. Councilmember Judy, we'll start with you.
Perfect. Thank you. My name is Matt Judy. Thank you to RCM for hosting us tonight. It's been a pleasure getting to know you all over the past 4 years, and thank you for all you do for the community. During the past 4 years, it's been an honor and a lifelong dream to serve my hometown of Roswell. Serving my hometown has allowed me to be a part of many accomplishments that continue to be made on a daily basis. A few that I'm most proud of are our response to COVID. As a government, we kept our services uninterrupted, finances strong, and unprecedented support of our businesses and community, all while entering 2022 with the lowest millage rate since 1988. Shortly after being elected, I championed our historic district master plan that protected our historic district from uncharacteristic growth. Third, our police department is reporting Part 1 violent crime in our city at a 20-year low, along with officer vacancy at a 20-year low as well. Fourth, we passed generational traffic and infrastructure projects that will improve our city for years to come. Those are just some of our accomplishments, and I look forward to this conversation this evening.
Thank you. And Ms. Lee Hills.
Thank you. Good evening. I appreciate everyone being here tonight, and especially RCM for hosting this event. I've lived in Roswell since 2001. My early career began in event planning, where listening and delivering on time and on budget is crucial. Since then, I've served in leadership roles throughout this community for many years. I've held positions on my HOA board, nonprofit boards, service organizations, and more committees than I have time to name. Additionally, I was elected PTA president for 5 years in the Fulton County Schools District, chaired the Project 9/11 flag installation for 7 years at Roswell High School, and for many years have participated in Roswell Remembers, which is the state's largest Memorial Day celebration. These are just a few examples of my love of Roswell and track record of work, involvement, and getting things done for our city. No one will work harder or more focused on the issues that are important to you. I truly look forward to being your next city council member.
Thank you. Councilmember Judy, I'll direct the first question to you. Earlier, we talked about affordability of housing. Some residents have concerns about home values. The value of homes in East Roswell have been stagnant and negatively impacted, while not so in West Roswell. What are your thoughts on this issue?
Thank you for that question. Growth is the major issue since I've been elected and before. I pushed to get the Historic District Master Plan put together shortly after my election. The HDP was unanimously passed by both Citizen Committee and also our council to protect our historic district. Since then, we've seen some very good growth in the historic district that fit the Historic District Master Plan. It's time to do the same with our Unified Development Code, or the UDC. This document has been divisive ever since its passing in 2014 and does not mirror the sentiment of many citizens. I've been calling for us to throw it out and start over. It's time we do this, involve our public, and adopt our code that protects, preserves, and allows us to refresh the rest of the city. I believe this will help us in East Roswell and as we grow across the city smartly.
Thank you. Ms. Hills?
We have to start with trust and transparency, and where we need to end up is with accountability. Matt here wants to scrap the UDC zoning and start over. However, our current UDC does have protections for neighborhoods, even though he has consistently voted against them. He also won the prize for receiving the largest amount in campaign donations ever spent in a city council race in the history of Roswell, over $70,000. Which brings me to my next topic. I'd like to end and will end pay to play. This business of candidates taking on campaign donations with potential strings attached after election must stop.
Thank you. Ms. Hills, I'll direct the next question to you. A community member states that parks and recreational fields for Roswell lag behind when compared to neighboring cities. Do you agree? And if so, how will you plan to improve them to bring them up to par?
The parks. Thank you. What a great opportunity our city has right now to hire an economic development director to address growth in Roswell. And it's all about our 75% to 25% residential to commercial tax base. That is our opportunity for growth. It's also an opportunity for us to be able to reinvest in areas that my opponent has not felt the need to do so, even after boasting to improve our parks when he first took office in 2017. I feel that we need to be intentional with our focus on attracting businesses, like expanding medical campuses or an educational institution, or a pickleball entertainment center reusing an empty strip mall, but not Yellow Ball, a project that was celebrated by my opponent and would have decimated one of our parks, Big Creek Park. Even though my opponent voted against hiring an economic director for most of his term, I believe creating a sophisticated economic growth arm of the city is paramount.
Thank you. Our next question, Councilmember
I
Judy.
didn't get the answer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
Yes,
all right.
you're correct.
It's very obvious you're going to see two types of answers here tonight, a negative spin on things and a positive spin on things. I am here to do the positive spin. I grew up in the parks since I was 4 years old playing t-ball. My son is in the parks right now playing multiple sports. Investing in the parks is not an option. We do have the gold medal winning parks in the country. And to say our parks are not on par is just not okay. We can continue to invest in our parks, and in the last committee meeting, I called for full investment in our parks over and beyond what we have now.
May I rebut, please?
Yes.
Thank you. My opponent recently voted down from $375,000 in recommended expenditures for maintenance on our recreation facilities and parks, down by $300 some odd dollars. So we're down to around 70 grand that he's allocated with his most recent weigh-in on the parks. That's what Matt Judy is expecting out of that department.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question, Councilmember Judy. How will you encourage the diverse constituents of Roswell, including youth and historically underrepresented groups, to participate in local government affairs?
Thank you for that question. The other day I hosted a group of Girl Scouts who came through and wanted to learn more about governments. I also hosted a women's soccer team, the Santos, that came through. Inclusivity is very important in our city. I believe we made great strides in our community over the past 4 years to become more inclusive. By no means are we there yet. On June 13, 2020, I stood on the steps of City Hall and pledged that to our community that we must fight racism, discrimination, and intolerance at every level in our community. Inclusivity needs to be a practice in all we do in Roswell. Since then, I've met with leaders, came up with action items and ideas, and taken action. We need to make a difference with action and not words. That starts with our youth. And I believe we put together a youth council for our Parks and Rec that will meet for the first time at City Hall in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hills?
America was not built on only one people. We are truly a melting pot. After entertaining several private schools, my husband and I chose public schools here for our children for diversity and exposure. Did you know that our diverse population in Roswell is representative of that in our nation? I've been attending naturalization ceremonies downtown Atlanta since 2016. Each ceremony had over 160 people representing 60 or more countries, and I got to welcome them as brand new Americans. While PTA president at Roswell High School, I was part of starting a new annual scholarship for students overcoming adversity, and we've been able to recognize students for the past 4 years from all different backgrounds.
Thank you. Ms. Hills, I'll direct the next question to you. When planning for growth, what priority would you give to reducing carbon pollution, expanding recycling initiatives, and promoting renewable energy?
I'm so glad you asked. I consider myself a lifetime environmentalist. Growing up, my family recycled almost everything. We had a huge garden, composted kitchen waste, and I grew up canning with my mom. That lifestyle is still true for me today. In addition, my husband works for one of the largest global recycling companies. 4 years ago, my opponent promised to bolster our award-winning parks and greenways, and yet not only has he completely ignored moving forward from the 2017 Parks Needs Assessment, he voted to dramatically cut the parks maintenance budget last year. I plan to actually commit to investing in and preserving our parks. My opponent also continues to approve development that essentially trades trees for traffic. I'd like to see Roswell's current tree fund actually go toward planting trees rather than general landscaping. Something else we should consider is chemical reduction, such as harmful herbicides and pesticides on city property. Instead, we should consider more organic approaches.
Councilmember Judy?
Thank you. Again, the negativity and pointing the fingers is not what we need on this council. Roswell is a town that's taken a strong stance in the protection of our environment. Over the past 4 years, we've worked hard against odds to keep glass in our recycling program, kept our recycling center that is the envy of other towns running, reimagined and upgraded our solid waste transfer station, among other city initiatives, such as the unanimous native plant incentive to protect our environment. We in Roswell are geographically blessed and must work with other state and federal agencies to protect our Chattahoochee River and battle the silt buildup that has made the river shallow and threatens water quality and recreational activities. I will make that a priority in my next 4 years.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Judy, what does Roswell look like after 3 years of your leadership? Which areas do you want to grow? Which areas do you think are doing fine?
Perfect. After 3 years of my leadership, I am very excited about investment in Roswell's infrastructure. It just doesn't have to come from our taxpayers. We must work with state and federal agencies on investment and grants. Over the last 4 years, I've worked with others to garner that investment. We currently have a commitment from GDOT to improve our traffic grid and invest money in our traffic infrastructure that equals more than an entire year of our entire budget. We are also looking into acting upon the improvement and addition of multimodal trails, pedestrian enhancements, water line replacement, park upgrades and management, hawk signals, and other improvements from multiple funding sources. We must get creative in these funding sources to keep the burden off the taxpayer. I look forward in the next 4 years to work on those infrastructure programs, continue to keep our parks gold medal level, and keep our public safety trending in the right direction.
Thank you. Candidate Hills.
Infrastructure dollars are the most important spending decisions our city currently faces. What my opponent is not being transparent with you about is in T-SPLOS 2, in fine print, it contains an item G. It effectively has a $5 million cost overrun from T-SPLOS 1. Folks, that's your money. Another infrastructure project currently under construction is Oxbow Road, which, by the way, is projected to cost 3 times the original approved budget. It is apparent my opponent is not qualified to decide how T-SPLOS dollars are spent because he consistently approves excessive budget overruns. If you care about responsible spending and quality of life issues like efficient transportation, water service, and more, and I know you do because I do too, that's the job of the City Council.
Thank you. Yes.
Just for the information, I was not on council when Oxbow was approved under T-SPLOS 1.
May I rebut?
Yes, one more rebuttal and then we'll move on.
My opponent has supported the budget overruns and has ignored the time overruns during his tenure.
Thank you. Moving on to our last question, and I'll direct that to you, Ms. Hills. Focusing on your own strengths, what makes you a better candidate for Roswell than your opponent?
Each time I have come into an organization, I find opportunities to make lasting and positive change. In that way, at least in the beginning, you might call me a disruptor. Cambridge Dictionary defines this as a person or thing that prevents something, especially a system, process, or event, from continuing as usual or as expected. I believe in being direct and implementing common sense initiatives, empowering those responsible to do what needs to get done. Along the way, I am right beside them, making sure they have the tools they need to complete the task. I'm not afraid to speak up or speak out for you as a resident or the business owners here in Roswell. Unlike my opponent, I am not afraid of working professionally with others who may oppose me on an issue. I'm committed to building bridges within our council, repairing relationships, and representing well our residents. Your city government owes our citizens more transparent counsel and should encourage communication in both directions.
Thank you. And Councilmember Judy.
Thank you. I think it's pretty clear tonight you have a negative type of leadership and you have a positive type of leadership moving forward. Let me ask you a question. What makes a good council member? As a council member, you have one vote. It's ineffective without a majority vote. That means you must be a consensus builder. You must work with others to achieve progress. As a leader, we must trust and challenge our fellow team members and the larger team members in City Hall. My leadership style is one that's trust, respect, communication, and focus. We must quit playing politics and talking points and start being leaders who are part of a much larger team of professionals, all who have the best interests of Roswell at heart.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to closing remarks. Councilmember Judy, you have 1 minute.
Perfect. Thank you to all those watching and to RCM for hosting us tonight. I believe you run for City Council, you must have a why. That why can't be just for the title, or it can't just be a stepping stone for a higher office outside of the city of Roswell, or just because somebody told you to. I know my why, and it hasn't changed since the day I decided to run. My why is it's my hometown of Roswell, its citizens, my friends, my family, and my son, who I hope raises his grandchildren here one day. This is a very important election, as there is much to be accomplished. I encourage everyone to move beyond the same old talking points that you've heard here from multiple candidates tonight and talk to their neighbors, business owners in this city, and maybe a city staff member about my intentions and for the city and its citizens. Together, all of us can keep a Roswell we can be proud of. I humbly ask for your vote. Matt Judy for Roswell City Council. Early voting starts October 12th. Voting day is November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. And Candidate Hills.
I want to thank RCM for hosting this event tonight and all of you for coming out or tuning in. My intentional local experience and community investments in Roswell are a testament to my commitment to our city. I am the only candidate that is not a commercial realtor, and my background will not compromise my role when elected. Unlike my opponent who has voted against protections for neighborhoods, I will consistently support residents and not be swayed by special interest donations in pay-to-play schemes. While my opponent uses ribbon cuttings as a metric for economic development, I am the only candidate for Post 6 that will implement real incentives to attract businesses to Roswell. I am the only candidate that will implement common sense initiatives to protect your tax dollars moving forward on large-scale traffic projects like Oxbow Road. I want to see Roswell thrive. Listening to our residents and representing you well is paramount, and I will do just that. There is no better choice for Post 6 than me. I am Lee Hills, and I look forward to being your next City Council member.
Thank you both. That concludes today's debate. Again, we'd like to thank the candidates for taking time to be with us today and thank our audience for tuning in. As a reminder, and you've heard it several times, early voting starts October 12th and Election Day is November 2nd. Your vote is your voice. Your voice is vital, and we hope you'll make your voice heard this November. Thank you and good night.